Chapter 14 of New Adventures of Alice by John Ray. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 14 The Rehearsal of The Enchanted Cheese. The smoke had changed to a thick cloud of dust, and when this cleared away somewhat, Alice saw that everything else had changed remarkably too. She was now sitting in the midst of a curiously costumed, jostling crowd on top of a lumbering stage-coach. Though the people and the animals in this party were the same as the ones she had just been with at King Cole's court, except that Pansy had disappeared, Alice observed that their clothes had changed strangely, all having now a swollen, padded outlook which gave, even to the attenuated Jack Sprat, a ridiculously puffy appearance. The little girl herself felt as though her dress were stuffed out with pillows. From beneath her, inside the coach, Alice could hear the band playing discordantly. Fortunately, the sound was somewhat muffled.
"I suppose the windows are closed, and I'm very thankful for that,"
she remarked to Dr. Foster, who was sitting next to her.
"And I'm also thankful that I'm not inside, even though it is so crowded up here."
"It's these puffed-up clothes everybody's wearing that makes it so crowded," replied the doctor.
He was now about the shape of a balloon himself.
"You see, my child, the reason for these full clothes is that this is to be a full dress rehearsal, but the stage really ought to be bigger. Why, I once knew a man who got hemmed in by a crowd, and he's had a stitch in his side ever since."
"Oh, then this must be the rehearsal the candlestick maker spoke of,"
began Alice, delighted at the prospect of theatricals.
"And come to think of it, the poet said something about—"
Here she was interrupted by the poet himself, who rose in his seat and began to shout,
"Friends, fellow citizens, silence please! We're going to rehearse The Enchanted Cheese."
The poet was still dressed as a penguin, and his ridiculous bird-cage helmet was set as a rakish angle on his head.
Curtain goes up on the opening scene, showing a grocery. Enter Queen.
At this juncture the stage-coach, which had evidently just then struck a very rough piece of road, began to bounce and bang along so noisily that Alice, who was sitting on the back seat, could only catch a few words now and then of what the poet was saying. Then, too, the dust became so thick that at times she could scarcely see anything at all, so that afterwards the memory of the rehearsal was always confused and unsatisfactory. She gathered, however, from the parts of the first act that she did hear and see, that the plot of the pantomime had to do principally with the chase of an enchanted Stilton cheese, which had escaped from the Queen's buttery, and this seemed to necessitate, on the part of the actors, a great deal of tripping over each other's feet, and falling down and throwing things about.
"In the first place,"
said Alice, in telling her sister about it all afterward,
"there was a good deal of quarrelling over who should have the parts with the most eating in them. And when the rehearsing finally started, it was very much like the game of stagecoach that we had just been playing at King Cole's court, for as each different character in the pantomime was mentioned by the poet, the one taking that part would jump up and go through all sorts of strange antics, and the top of the stage was so crowded that we were rocking so from side to side that quite often someone would be pushed off, though I don't suppose the fall could have hurt any of them much, as their clothes were all padded out so."
After this sort of thing had been going on for about 10 minutes, the coach began to slow down, the noise of the band inside diminishing at the same time. Soon both the stage-coach and the music stopped. When the dust had settled, Alice, looking forward, was astonished to see that there were no horses hitched to their strange conveyance.
"It almost seems as though it may have been the music that kept us going,"
said Alice aloud to herself.
"for when the band stopped, the stage stopped."
The doctor, who was now rummaging about in his little medicine satchel, overheard this remark, and said without looking up,
"Of course, a stagecoach can't go without noise, silly, but this'll soon revive the band, I dare say,"
he added,
"and then we can go on again."
As he said this, he pulled out of his satchel a small bottle labelled Excello's Elixir for Exhausted Musicians. He then climbed down the little steps on the side of the coach, opened the door, and stepped in. Most of the actors had by this time jumped down to the ground, and were peering anxiously in at the windows in a helpless sort of way.
"If that medicine works as well as the stuff he gave me for wet feet, we ought to be going again very shortly,"
said Alice to herself,
"though I'm not so tremendously anxious to go on with—"
Here there was a sudden deafening burst of drumming, fiddling, and piping, and the stage-coach started off with such an unexpected violence that Alice was jerked backwards out of her seat. End of chapter 14.